A defense for permitting the suffering and killing of animals is to argue for, or in some cases assume, the moral salience of intelligence. One way the salience is stressed is to argue that if a creature is sufficiently intelligent enough, then it is not permissible to kill it for the reasons of enjoying the taste of its flesh, or to use it in ways that are not necessary to achieve a particular aim, such as clothing and food, as there are non-animal alternatives to each. So humans, for the most part, are safe since, perhaps not by happenstance, we pass the intelligence threshold. On the other hand, it is permissible to kill and eat animals that fail to pass the intelligence threshold. This view that a being must pass a certain intelligence threshold in order for its well-being to have a weighty moral status is what I'll be addressing in this video. A second, somewhat related argument is that in virtue of being the most intelligent, the apex intelligent beings can do whatever they please to less intelligent beings. This argument is easier to dispense with than the first, so it will be briefly addressed near the end of this video. By accepting the first argument, we run the risk of permitting the slaughter of animals that we normally find impermissible to slaughter. For example, there are people who believe it is permissible to slaughter pigs because of their perceived lack of intelligence. But some of the same people do not condone the killing and eating of dogs, cats, horses, and so on. Now, do these people think it is impermissible to kill these animals due to their intelligence alone? That is, rather than only humans passing the threshold, do dogs also pass? If so, then there's a problem, as there are studies that show that certain farm animals could be as intelligent, or more intelligent, than our beloved pets. When considering farm animals, pigs are candidates for being as intelligent as dogs.
This better not awaken anything in me.
If pigs are as intelligent as dogs, and we find it impermissible to eat dogs because they are intelligent, then we should not eat pigs. However, if pigs do not pass the intelligence criterion to be exempt from slaughter, then dogs are, according to this line of thought, up for the chopping block as well. Obviously, many people want to avoid this conclusion. To avoid an arbitrary exception, there has to be some property that dogs have, but pigs do not. And further, if a being has this property, then it is not permissible to kill it or treat it as we do with pigs. One difference that could be argued for is that dogs fulfill purposes that differ from farm animals, such as companionship as opposed to food. The response to this is a resounding, so what? Pigs, lambs, chickens, and the like can be kept as pets too, but does it then follow that because of this, we should not eat them? One could easily keep pigs as pets and slaughter dogs, and we'd still have the same problem. Ultimately, this argument fails to prevent dog slaughterhouses from cropping up. In order to successfully argue for the impermissibility of dog slaughterhouses, we would have to turn to a better argument. But if no morally salient difference between dogs and pigs can be identified, then the reasoning will likely extend to supporting the impermissibility of pig slaughterhouses too. Before going further, I should acknowledge that I've ignored the nebulous and contentious territory that comes with defining, comparing, and measuring intelligence. It's also territory I'm not well informed about. However, whether we agree or disagree with the arguments I'm addressing or making, any side of the issue has to face these problems. Without derailing the video, and as an attempt to avoid a minefield, I'm referring to intelligence as including a variety of cognitive abilities, such as problem-solving, memory, and a capacity for emotion. Now, if the intelligence threshold is at the point that pigs and dogs fail to pass it, but most humans do pass it, then again, a problem arises where some humans will no doubt find themselves with pigs and dogs. This is illustrated in studies that show pigs being capable of outperforming children 3 years and younger in certain cognitive tasks. If it is permissible to kill and eat pigs because of their lesser intelligence, and we accept pigs are smarter than some children, then it would follow that it is permissible to kill and eat some children, perhaps in the 3 years and younger range. Even those who are on board with eating dogs will likely want to avoid this conclusion. To do so, one could say that children, with some time, will cognitively surpass pigs and other animals to the point of passing the intelligence threshold. Regardless if we accept this move or not, it actually does not save one from endorsing the cannibalization of less intelligent humans, as it fails to make a case for the impermissibility of eating humans who will never pass the cognitive abilities of pigs or 3-year-olds. While it is exceptionally rare and maybe even unheard of for there to be humans who are stuck with the cognitive abilities of an average 3-year-old, it's certainly logically possible, and I'm posing it to test the reasoning that supports the killing of many animals. So the question then is whether it would be permissible to kill and eat humans of any age who are stuck with severely limited cognitive abilities. As with the idea of dog slaughterhouses, many people want to avoid endorsing the killing of mentally impaired humans, as they should. But can they escape this conclusion while also permitting the killing of animals that have similar levels of intelligence? One way to do this is to argue for the value that all humans have over all non-human animals, regardless of the intelligence possessed. But now, much like the companionship argument, we're moving away from an intelligence criterion, and such a move potentially forfeits intelligence as a necessary condition, as it's attempting to spare severely cognitively impaired humans. Additionally, there's a genuine worry as to how one could defend some superior moral worth for merely belonging to a particular species. Such a position has been labeled as speciesism, and it has its share of problems. Philosopher Peter Singer defines speciesism as, quote, an attitude of bias against a being because of the species to which it belongs, end quote. This does not imply that speciesism is inherent in all moral philosophizing over ethical problems or dilemmas that involve humans and non-human animals. To illustrate this, Singer gives examples of what would not constitute as speciesist and what would constitute as speciesist in the following. Quote, one might argue that to kill a normal human being who wants to go on living is more seriously wrong than killing a non-human animal. Whether this claim is or is not sound, it is not speciesist. But given that some human beings, most obviously those with profound intellectual impairment, lack this capacity or have it to a lower degree than some non-human animals, it would be speciesist to claim that it is always more seriously wrong to kill a member of the species Homo sapiens than it is to kill a non-human animal, end quote. Perhaps unsurprisingly, given its name, some of the problems with speciesism are shared with racism, sexism, and many other discriminatory attitudes, and because of this, it has been criticized on similar grounds, such as the charge of arbitrariness. But further criticism can be found in the sophisticated and egalitarian argument. Singer uses this argument to address the moral salience of intelligence, among other features. For this, he draws attention to racist attitudes and how one could find them objectionable. With regards to intelligence, a racist could claim his or her racist beliefs are justified by disparity in intelligence between races. For the disparities in intelligence, the racist is making an empirical claim, and it's one we could object to for being false, or at the very least, dubious. Yet, what if the racist is correct, and a disparity in intelligence exists? Could we still not object to the racist conclusion that, because such a disparity in intelligence exists, we should be indifferent or callous toward less intelligent beings' desires or well-being? If we accept the racist ethical reasoning as sound, then we would be, as the argument goes, sophisticated and egalitarians. This should hit hard, since I know how much YouTubers love the term egalitarian. Anyway, many of us would reject the racist view even if he or she were correct about the empirical facts. So, if this is the case, then why would the disparity in intelligence between non-human animals and humans be any different? One could argue that the racist characterization of the disparity in intelligence fails to be, whether true or not, as severe as the actual disparity in intelligence between humans and non-human animals. But we're back to whether an intelligence criterion is sufficient or necessary. It seems that, regardless of the belief, be it racist or speciesist, the empirical facts regarding a disparity in intelligence, whether true or false, offer a poor justification for discriminatory attitudes.
Oh, hell yeah. God has given us a harvest of old chicken bones on the street. Thank you for the bone harvest meat!
Finally, what should be made of the view that the most intelligent are permitted to prey on the less intelligent? Not much, I believe. A problem with this position is that it could permit the killing of all humans. Regardless if the following scenario is far-fetched or not, it's logically possible that there could be a species more intelligent than humans. And it's possible that the species could pick up the work of InfoWars, inspiring philosophy, propaganda from the Kim Dynasty, bionic dance, red pill philosophy, Lawrence Krauss, Jerry Coyne, or the amazing atheist, and then decide to annihilate humanity while inflicting as much suffering as possible. Many people would find it absurd for this to be permissible, even those who are initially fond of the apex intelligence argument. But let's say someone doesn't see the permissibility of torture and annihilation based on intelligence alone as an apparently objectionable position. What can be said in response? Well, the biggest problem is that it is potentially arbitrary. Much like racism, sexism, and egoism, it's arbitrary in how it dispenses what is good. If these beliefs are not arbitrary, then what is the morally relevant feature that makes one group or individual worthy of what is good over the discriminated? The special moral standing that these groups or individuals believe they have remains unfounded. If our brains aren't wilted lettuce, then we should reject arbitrary beliefs. And if we accept that morality is not as arbitrary and easy as liking vanilla ice cream, unlike some unscrupulous people...
Do you like... Well, that's good, because we slapped it on a fucking t-shirt.
Then we should reject speciesism, along with similar beliefs. If none of my arguments have been convincing so far, then I'll end with posing a final thought experiment, which will have spoilers for the TV series Hannibal. If you don't want the series spoiled, then stop watching now or click at this timestamp. So for the thought experiment, you find yourself attending a dinner party hosted by Hannibal Lecter.
The devil.
Things are going well as you sip on your beer and take a seat next to Ed Kemper, who happens to be the only other guest. He begins talking about himself, divulging his hobbies, dreams, past experiences, and the like. Well, when I took an IQ test, I scored around 145. I believe my intelligence is as apparent as my physical features, but even if that's not the case, I'm sure you can tell that I'm a very large man. I stand at 6 foot 9 inches, and I weigh nearly 300 pounds. Oh, cool. As Kemper continues to tell you about how he killed, dismembered, and performed necrophilia and cannibalism on almost a dozen college students, you begin to sweat and wonder if now is the time you should run the apex intelligence argument by him. But your thoughts are interrupted as Hannibal begins to place the silverware at the table. You can't help but notice the knives he's carrying. While Hannibal seems to be showing no malicious intent with the cutlery in hand, you can't shake your trepidation as he sets the table. You decide to distract yourself by bringing up the apex intelligence argument. You know what I was thinking is morally permissible? Killing, eating, and perhaps even torturing anything less intelligent than me. You're then treated to a first-hand experience of the preparation of long pig, but you won't be around to taste the main course.
Smoked, glazed, served on a sugarcane quill. You'll be falling off the bone.
Well, of course.
If you feel you're safe because you believe your intelligence surpasses Kemper's and Hannibal's, then imagine that you were subjected to torture that severely damaged your brain. The torture would take the form of the following clip, and if you don't want to experience it, which I would suggest, then click this timestamp.
Prominent Twitter users with hundreds of thousands of followers are now personally feminism because women's magazines.
Do you see?
Yes. Then make them about something else, you fucking retard.
The property of an object can simultaneously both exist and not exist.
During the times of slavery, that it is generally accepted and acceptable in that time period.
Religion, theology, and some said philosophy which we almost nothing to our physical understanding. Questions of what is something?
Yes.
Beliefs on not philosophy.
If you choose religion, then you must realize the aims of human life.
See?
Because high-strung situations, you are paying for your life. The best situations make rational
See? Do you see? Please?
To wrap this up, there's no doubt that humans have some significant differences when compared to non-human animals, chief among them clearly being intelligence, as I've been talking about for this entire video. This is nothing new or surprising, of course, as this difference has been noted and stressed for some time. Perhaps most radically, Descartes believed animals had no thoughts or capacity for understanding. They're tantamount to machinery when they act, and as such, do not experience suffering when we kill and eat them. Kant argued that we only had an imperfect duty toward animals, so that we do not lapse into mistreating autonomous beings. And Aristotle certainly thought that our ability to reason gave us dominion over those who could not reason equally. This includes animals, and, according to Aristotle, women and slaves. However, rather than our ability to reason making it permissible to harm or merely use those who cannot reason as well or at all, perhaps our ability to reason is morally salient in a different way. Instead, it could hold us to be respectful or considerate toward even those who cannot reason.
And with these rarefied dishes you so carefully prepare, do we all taste different?
Everyone has their flavor.
Cannibalism was standard behavior among our ancestors. The missing link was only missing because we ate him.
This isn't cannibalism, Abel. It's only cannibalism if we're equals.